Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for I have another episode of the Skies of Ace Combat. Going to be talking a bit about today. With today's video, going to be talking a bit about the F-4 Phantom. Excuse me as I butcher the intro because I'm old and shit. But so let's dive on into the F-4 Phantom. Of course, it's a pretty legendary plane, I would say. A lot of people, pretty much the world at this point, I would say, is pretty aware of the F-4 Phantom and its various deeds and tales and etc. But let's begin with it. The F-4 Phantom II is an American long-range supersonic jet interceptor designed and produced by McDonnell Douglas. The F-14 was originally produced for the United States Navy. However, other branches of service would also take interest. It would enter service in 1961 with the U.S. Navy. However, it would later enter service also with the United States Marine Corps, which kind of makes sense. The Marine Corps tends to use some of the same planes that the Navy uses, particularly now, like the Marine Corps is using a special variant, a VTOL variant of the F-35, as well as the F-18. But it would also enter service with the United States Air Force. By the mid-1960s, the F-4 Phantom had become a major part of the United States air arm of all three branches. The F-4 was a large fighter that could achieve Mach 2.2 with its two engines. There was a wide variety of engines produced by various companies. The F-4E, which is actually what we see here in Ace Combat, was powered by two General Electric J74 GE17A engines. And they're pretty massive engines, actually. I've actually seen an F-4E in person. They are massive planes. It could achieve a maximum speed of 1,470 miles per hour. That is 2,370 kilometers per hour for my non-American audience at 40,000 feet. The F-4E was armed with a 20mm M60A1 Vulcan cannon. Understand that earlier variants of the F-4 was not armed with a gun, which I feel was a bad choice, but that's a discussion for another time. The plane could also carry a wide variety of bombs and missiles on its 9 pylon hardpoints. It could carry up to 18,650 pounds of ordnance. A lot of ordnance. This could be AIM-9 Sparrows, AIM-7 Sparrows, AIM-9 Sidewinders, AIM-120 MRAMs, AGM-65 Mavericks, cluster bombs, unguided bombs, and the SUU-23A 20mm gun pods, and etc. The list of armaments that the F-4 could accept goes on. By 1959, the F-4 would achieve 15 aviation world records, including for in-flight performance and speed. A total of 5,195 F-4s would be built between 1958 and 1981, making the F-4 the most produced American supersonic plane in military aviation history. So, yeah, we produced a lot of these things. The F-4's claim to fame was its service in the Vietnam War, where it was primarily used as a fighter bomber. In air-to-air combat over Vietnam, the F-4 Phantom achieved a favorable kill record, and that's even without having guns at first. However, there is caveats to that. Some of those planes were much older planes, such as MiG-15s, and even still, by that point, the MiG-21, which was one of the planes that the NVA had used, well, the North Vietnamese military, was kind of an older plane. The other thing is there was some issues at during some points of its service in Vietnam with air-to-air kills, and that had more to do with the training of the time, the fact that the plane didn't have a gun, and the rules of engagement that was put in place on the aviators in the field. So this, there's kind of some issues, caveats, etc. to its service record. But in general terms, the F-4 Phantom did perform very well in Vietnam. Many F-4 Phantoms served over Vietnam. One said F-4 Phantom was Chico the gunfighter, which actually this is a painting of here, or, well, this is a digital image of the painting. In the spring of 1972, things in northern South Vietnam was heating up. NVA troops was invading across the DMZ. At the same time, NVA troops launched a bold offensive. The 366th Tactical Fighter Wing was stationed at Da Nang, and they were the last F-4 fighter wing in South Vietnam. Chico was an F-4E, which did have the 20mm Vulcan cannon. It would typically have Mark 20 Rockeye cluster bombs, as well as AIM-7 Sparrows. Now, that being said, the Rockeye cluster bombs was for the Navy, not the Air Force. These are Air Force planes, mind you. And it has been noted that it's likely that Chico was the only plane to mount these cluster bombs. It would also typically mount either a or a series of SUU-23A gun pods. There was actually 5 different pilots also that flew Chico. The U.S. military would begin retiring the F-4 in the 1980s, and it began replacing them with newer fighters like the F-15, F-16, and F-18s. However, many countries still use the F-4 Phantom today. Greece, Iran, South Korea, and Turkey being those 4 operators. And actually, Turkey has actually put out a series of upgrade programs for the F-4 Phantom. Actually, they just put one out about 2-3 years ago. As well as some other countries have been putting out different various upgrade programs for the old F-4s. The F-4 also served with Australia, Egypt, Germany, and the United Kingdom. Now, it only served, interestingly enough, it only served 3 years with Australia that I've seen on record, which was really, I found that really interesting in itself. They must have not been very fond of the plane, or they were older planes. I'm not quite sure what the deal is when it comes with Australia and the service of the F-4 Phantom. And that being said, I did see that there's various countries that are coming out with different upgrade programs. Actually, even the United States is still working on upgrade programs for the F-4 Phantom. The only thing I have to say about that, though, is with planes like the F-22, with the upgrade programs that have been done to planes like the F-15, the F-16, and the F-18, other planes like the F-35, now there's the Su-57. There's been some upgrade programs done to some of the MiGs out there. I just don't know really how much longer a plane like this has any feasibility as per se a fighter interceptor. I could definitely wanted to see using this plane as a trainer, or using the F-4 as a fighter bomber, which it actually does fairly well at, even though it per se wasn't originally designed to be a fighter bomber. So I mean, I could definitely see it being used as ground attacker or as a reserve plane. But I definitely tip my hat off to any country that's using this still as a frontline fighter. With all the different aerial threats out there and the technology getting better and better, a plane like this has to be getting really long on the tooth. or at least that's what I believe. I could be wrong. Now, actually, in Ace Combat 7, the F-4 is actually not a completely bad plane. I would not want to fly this thing on some of the harder difficulties. But, yeah, you know what? For being a DLC plane, it does all right. It does pretty good. It's definitely not the best plane in the game. And it does have some interesting ordnance, as well as a bit of an interesting history. I didn't want to dive too deep into the history about this plane because, well, realistically, that can really open up a can of worms. And typically, I don't have enough time to really get into that many details about these aircraft. I am concerned about making sure that I can get all the information I really want to get in with the various planes that I have shown so far in these episodes, and still be able to have time just to sit here, talk a little bit, give some feedback and some thoughts about the planes myself as I do research on them and look into them. And I mean, I think the F-4 is a really cool plane for its time. And that being said, though, that is for its time. The F-15 has definitely surpassed this. The F-15 not really being much newer than the F-4 Phantom. Planes like the F-22, you know, if you were caught in an F-22, or sorry, if you were caught in an F-4 and an F-22 showed up and it was an enemy F-22, you're definitely going to be really in a hurt locker. And I think even planes like the F-14, even though it's no longer in service with the United States, and pretty much is only seeing one operator, other operator, over its years, would absolutely dominate the F-4. But, I mean, that's just my opinion. That's really, I guess, neither here nor there. There's obvious reasons why these countries are using the F-4s. Maybe for them they are absolutely viable planes. Maybe there's budget constraints. Who knows? Doesn't really matter. It's still cool to see them in service. I just don't know how much longer they would really be viable. And this also kind of reverts back to my video I did previously on the MiG-21 bits of how much longer can this plane really be in service, let alone when it comes to the MiG-21. I definitely don't believe it should be in service anymore. And this kind of fits that slot too of, yeah, it really should be in limited service, if not in service at all. Just totally retired. But anyway, folks, that is my video for today on the F-4E. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Please take a moment, share this video if you did, and also give it a like. Kind of helps me grow as a YouTuber and get some more exposure on these videos. But anyway, folks, once again, thanks again for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful day.